Okay, Frank, so you've deployed and worked with loads of different organisations, and you've deployed your rapid mass engagement thinking into different organisations. What's the most common form of scepticism that you've come across, and how have you, I suppose, how have you challenged that, or how have you contracted?
Senior leadership teams, it can sound like the tail wagging the dog, and people worry about, where could this go? You know, is it a socialist revolution? You know, it is.
Are we creating a cult?
All sorts. But it's not obvious to people the amount of design that's gone in to make sure that what comes out promotes improvement and tangible results. You know, quality, output, profit, etc., etc. These are all important things, and we don't shy away from profit. You know, we look at profit like red blood cells. We don't live to produce red blood cells, but if we don't have red blood cells, we don't live. Yeah, so we have to have the profit in order to fund the investment and all the other things that create successful organisations. And so senior leaders worry about that. Humility, which we've talked about in other conversations, also comes into it here. Some leaders wonder, am I going to be capable of doing this? Will I potentially become a casualty of this because my...
Will I be exposed?
Yes, yes. And that is in one sense, it's a good sign because it's a sign of humility. On the other side of it, it can make increased risk aversion.
Because people aren't forthcoming to expose their vulnerabilities typically, so they'd be protective of.
Yeah, it's a natural human thing. Yeah. I mean, that we don't want to be criticised. We don't want our failings, which we may be aware of ourselves, to be widely talked about. But the interesting thing about that is, almost universally, not university, but almost universally, the feedback from employees is something like fair play, or I was really impressed by the leader there. Because employees know that we're not perfect. So pretending to be perfect is just inauthentic. When a leader says that I got that wrong and this is right and so what we're doing about it, that's now okay. You don't want your leaders making the same mistake repeatedly. But if I'm an example of that. I made loads of mistakes. I still make mistakes. Mistakes happen. It's how you react to the mistake, both your own mistake and other people's mistakes, that make the big difference. And that's where things like assuming positive intent matters. Very few people mean to do things wrongly. There are some people, and you have to exit them from the organisation, but very few. So I think that's the biggest skepticism. The other thing is people have been told for 60 years that culture change is slow.
Yeah.
So when someone comes along and says, no, it isn't. I mean, I had that problem in corporate life. I could not get anybody in their corporate life to run rapid mass engagement. And that was a major factor in setting up my own business. Because I kind of knew that if I was coming from the outside, I might have a better chance. I know that's wrong, but it's reality.
There's a degree of safety when you hold the mirror up that it's someone outside the organisation holding the mirror.
That you can blame.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. And I've had that as well. You know, if this goes wrong, we're going to blame you. I said, that's why we make sure it doesn't go wrong. And there's a lot of thinking in that. The balance between authenticity and not taking too much risk is important, and senior leaders need to see examples of other places. They need to talk to leaders who've gone through this kind of process to reassure themselves that essentially we know what we're doing, kind of thing. But there are risks, and you know when you try to reach the moon, kind of thing, or at the top of the mountain. And sometimes it can be difficult. And sometimes you decide we're not going to go that far
first. Yeah, or
we just make a decision that's too risky or it's too much. But what we can say is by aiming high and then being sticky downwards. So in other words, okay, we'll adjust, but we won't go to the bottom of the hill again. You'll end up in a better position than you would have been.
Yes.
So it's the willingness to have those adult, senior, real discussions about reality that make the thing work.
And I guess it's having that level of conscious awareness around, these things. There's stuff going on in my organisation that I know is going on.
Yes.
And am I and my team willing enough to allow it to come onto the table and to deal with it then?
Yeah. And you do that in the workshops with the senior teams when you talk about behaviours.
Yes.
And you start with outwards and then you get inwards.
Exactly, for the not ideal and the ideal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that's doing it at the level of the leadership team.
Yeah.
And
that engenders that kind of
exactly
then.
Yeah. And it's interesting the kind of process talking to senior leaders about this when they've made a decision they want to do rapid mass engagement, and I believe they're capable of doing it. That's an initial decision. The amount of discussion about what exactly are we going to do, how are we going to do it, how are we going to maximise the chance of success is quite extensive, in terms of the list of things. You have to agree what your higher purpose is, you have to agree which system are we trying to optimise, you're going to have to agree how do we make sure the if there's a trade union site, how to make sure the trade unions don't feel attacked, if they don't feel this is a kind of attempt to remove trade union
voice.
From the trade unions. And it isn't, you see. And one of the key things there is the trade union reps have a longer workshop. They have, in fact, an unlimited workshop to allow them to be comfortable so that they can support what's going on. So there's a whole lot of decisions. Each of those decisions are important and have to be facilitated. And this is where the importance of facilitation. It's not just the facilitation by the internal facilitators about the culture and the leadership. It's also the facilitation of the discussions with senior leaders and other leaders.